Today, what a beautiful Monday morning. The birds are chirping, the sun is shining outside, and I wake up to see Stephanie White getting dragged through the mud for being a snake oil salesman, aka a liar, all online. Oh, what a great day. Cheers to that, folks. Good morning to you. Good morning to you.
Caitlin Clark fans are not just angry after Indiana's season opener, they are already demanding Stephanie White be fired. And the scary part is, this did not take weeks. It did not take 10 games. It did not even take a losing streak. It took one night, one chaotic, high-scoring, painful opener against the Dallas Wings, where the Indiana Fever lost 107-104 and immediately turned the most hyped start of the season into a full-blown crisis.
Well, we've got the continued fallout from the Indiana Fever loss to the Dallas Wings at home in the home opener to a team that won 10 games last year. The fallout is getting, the fandom getting loud. By fandom, I mean Caitlin Clark fandom. You had a lot of things coming out of that. You had the great mystery of back injury. Is it a back injury compensating for something else? Was it a hip flexor? Was it her groin? ABC threw that out there, and everybody immediately, I'm looking at the TV going, wait, what?
Because this was not supposed to happen. Not at home. Not with Caitlin Clark bringing historic attention to the league. Not against a Dallas team that won only 10 games last season. And definitely not under Stephanie White, the coach who was supposed to bring structured defense and a real identity back to Indiana.
Stephanie White. Folks, how many pick and rolls did we see in the season opener against the Dallas Wings? 2? 3? No more than 4, that's for damn sure. Why? Well, because Stephanie White, she's too smart. She knows too much. She's an elite ball knower, remember? She's a basketball junkie, remember? All I do every day, I wake up and I put on basketball, and then I go to sleep and I put on basketball, and I go to practice and I'm watching basketball, and I'm watching film tape. Stephanie, stop with the lies. Stop with the lies. We know you come in at 6:30, you punch out at 3:30, and you go home and you lay down on your couch watching soap operas for the rest of the day. We know how it goes. Nothing about you feels like obsessed with my job. Everything about you feels like snake oil salesman.
But by the final buzzer, the fans were not talking about a close loss. They were asking one brutal question. Is Stephanie White already failing Caitlin Clark? And once that question hit social media, everything exploded. The memes started, the comments turned ugly. Fans mocked White as the coach of the century, and the calls to fire her started getting louder by the minute.
Fire White, no size playing CC off ball. She does what she does, not work, then talks trash about Caitlin Clark fans. Look in the audience, what do you see? I gotta tell you, these ladies act like we haven't spent the last 6 decades watching the best basketball on earth. We know what it's supposed to look like. Yeah, I mean, if you grew up in the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s of the NBA, you know what real good basketball is supposed to look like. Find a coach that can build around Clark, manage Mitchell, or trade her. Make this team something people wants to watch. Tick-tock, tick-tock.
But here is what makes this different. This was not just emotional fans melting down after one bad result. A lot of them believe they saw the exact same problems they warned about before the season even started. Bad spacing, weak bench minutes, no real protection for Caitlin Clark, too many defensive breakdowns, too many open shots, too much confusion when the game got tight, and one moment late in the game made everything worse. In the final minute, Stephanie White appeared to ask her staff what Dallas was going to run.
No wonder you lit the Vanderbilt program on flames. Just burn it to the ground. My boy Venom, I'm showing this. Go subscribe. This reaction And I saw this late last night. His reaction is all you need to know.
Make sure they deny. What do you think they're going to run here?
Game, first season opener ever in the history of this league.
And I want to know who she's talking to. Bree January is on the right side right here drinking. Who could she have been asking this question to?
Where both teams have scored 100 points. Let's listen into the huddles.
Check the other bit. So make sure we deny. What do you think they're going to run here?
This is a look of a coach that has zero idea what she's doing. This is the look of a coach that has zero idea what she's literally in the heat of the moment when adversity is adversitying the most, if that's even a word. And she's looking. All players' eyes on her, looking for her for the answer. And she's looking around. What do you think they're going to run here?
I'll stop it right there.
To some people, that may sound normal. Coaches communicate. Coaches ask questions. Coaches talk through situations. But to angry Fever fans watching their team fall apart, that moment looked like panic. It looked like a coach searching for answers instead of giving them. And once the clip started circulating, fans had their proof, at least in their minds. This was not just a roster issue. This was a leadership issue. And that is why the backlash hit so hard. Because Indiana did not just lose. They lost in a way that made fans feel like Caitlin Clark is still being wasted. That is the real story here. Caitlin Clark is not a normal player. She is not just another young guard trying to find her place in the league. She is the player who changed the entire conversation around the WNBA. She brought the ratings. She brought the sold-out arenas. She brought new fans, old NBA fans, casual viewers, and people who had never watched a full WNBA game before. So when Indiana puts her on the floor, the expectation is simple. Build around her, protect her, use her correctly, give her the kind of system that makes her dangerous every single possession. But against Dallas, fans did not see that. They saw Clark working too hard. They saw her getting pressured. They saw moments where the offense looked disconnected. They saw her playing off the ball when they wanted the game running through her hands. And they saw a Fever team that still did not seem to understand how rare this opportunity is. At Iowa, Caitlin Clark had an identity. The whole offense made sense. The spacing was clear. The screens came at the right time. Her teammates understood their roles. Everything was built around the gravity she created. But in Indiana, fans keep asking the same question. Why does it still feel so difficult? Why does the offense still look clunky? Why is the most dangerous offensive weapon in women's basketball not being put in the best possible position every trip down the floor? And after this opener, that frustration finally boiled over because it was not just the offense. The defense was even harder to explain. Stephanie White was brought in as a defensive-minded coach. That was supposed to be the upgrade. That was supposed to be the new identity. The Fever were supposed to be tougher, sharper, more organized, more disciplined. But Dallas scored 107 points, 107, in Indiana, in the season opener, against a team the Fever were supposed to beat. That is why fans are furious. Because the entire selling point of this new era was that Indiana would finally stop being soft, sloppy, and easy to attack. Instead, Dallas got open looks. They found rhythm. They got to the free throw line. They punished mistakes. And every time Indiana needed a stop, it felt like the Wings had an answer. That is not just one player having a bad night. That is a system problem. And when your system fails on opening night, with the whole league watching, the coach is always going to take the heat. But Stephanie White is not the only one under pressure. The front office should be feeling it too, because the need help. Who changes the game? When the pace gets frantic, who settles the team down? That is where Indiana looked exposed. And that is where fans started turning from frustrated to furious, because they have seen what elite teams look like. Some wanted certain players traded. Some asked why nobody was setting better screens for Caitlin. Some said they were already done with the team. And the most dangerous comments were not even the angry ones. They were the hopeless ones. The fans saying this is exactly what they feared. The fans saying Indiana is wasting Clark. The fans saying if this continues, Caitlin should want out. That is when a bad loss becomes something much bigger. Because once a fan base starts talking about whether the franchise deserves its superstar, you are no longer dealing with normal criticism. You are dealing with a trust problem. And right now, Indiana has a trust problem. Fans do not fully trust the coaching. They do not fully trust the roster. They do not fully trust the front office. And after that opener, they are not sure Caitlin Clark is being protected the way a franchise-changing player should be protected. That is the part the Fever cannot ignore. This is not just about Stephanie White. It is about the entire organization proving it knows what it has. Because Caitlin Clark is not just another player on the roster. She is the engine. She is the reason arenas are packed. She is the reason the spotlight is so bright. She is the reason every Fever game now feels like a national event. And when you have that kind of player, the standard changes. Every decision gets bigger. Every rotation matters more. Every lost possession gets dissected. Every bad coaching moment becomes a headline. And every loss feels heavier. That may not be fair, but it is reality. And Stephanie White is now living in that reality. After one game, she is already under the microscope. Not because one loss should define a season, but because this loss confirmed too many fears at once. The defense looked bad. The bench looked thin. The offense looked uncomfortable. Clark did not look fully empowered. And the team looked unprepared in the biggest moments. That is why this opener felt so damaging. It was supposed to calm people down. Instead, it poured fuel on the fire. And now, the Fever are facing the first real crisis of the season before the season has even had a chance to breathe. So should Stephanie White be fired right now? Honestly, no. One game should not decide a coach's entire future. That would be an overreaction. But should Stephanie White be under immediate pressure? Absolutely. Because the Fever do not have the luxury of wasting time. Not with Caitlin Clark. Not with this level of attention. Not with a fan base that is already questioning whether the franchise is good enough for her. White does not need to be perfect, but she needs to show very quickly that there is a plan. She needs to show that the defense can actually improve. She needs to show that the offense can be built around Caitlin's strengths. She needs to show that late-game moments will not turn into confusion. And she needs to show fans that this team is not just hoping Caitlin Clark saves them every night. Because if the Fever keep looking like this, the conversation will get uglier. It will not just be fans demanding Stephanie White be fired. It will be fans demanding roster changes, front office changes, a complete reset. And eventually, the conversation nobody in Indiana wants to hear will get louder. Why should Caitlin Clark stay loyal to a team that cannot build properly around her? That is the real danger. Not one loss, not one bad defensive night, not one ugly social media reaction. The real danger is that the Fever waste the early years of the most important player in the sport. That is why this opener mattered so much. It was not just Dallas beating Indiana. It was a warning. A warning that hype alone does not win games. A warning that Caitlin Clark cannot carry a broken structure forever. A warning that fans are watching every move. And a warning that Stephanie White's grace period may already be gone. The Fever can still fix this. It is early. One game does not end a season, but first impressions matter. And Indiana's first impression was chaos. So now the pressure is on. Stephanie White has to prove she is the right coach. The front office has to prove it built the right team. And the players have to prove this opener was not a sign of what is coming. Because Caitlin Clark fans have already made their message clear. They are not waiting quietly this year. They are not accepting excuses. And if Indiana keeps wasting these moments, the calls for Stephanie White to be fired are only going to get louder. So now I want to know what you think. Are Caitlin Clark fans overreacting after one bad loss? Or did Stephanie White already show signs that she is the wrong coach for this team? And if you are still watching, drop Clark Crisis in the comments.
You know, it's really sad, man. Every time I think the WNBA can't look worse, they find a way to do it. So now we got Tiffany Hayes. She's on Threads responding to fans who are talking crazy about Caitlin Clark. And it's just like, Tiffany Hayes, all right, you are a good basketball player. You had every opportunity to show that you was better than Caitlin Clark. And in all reality, you couldn't do it, all right? You was doing you, but when Clark landed that bomb from Baghdad on you, you quickly got in your feelings, which made no sense because you was crying the whole game.
Tiffany Hayes made one massive mistake against Caitlin Clark. She thought getting physical, talking trash, and clapping in Clark's face would throw her off. But instead, she woke up the most dangerous version of Caitlin Clark we have seen all season. Because after that moment, Clark did not just play better. She started hunting Golden State. And the scary part is, the more emotional the game became, the more locked in Caitlin Clark looked.
Now, you would think, with everything that has happened online with Tiffany Hayes and the hot mic situation, she would have just left the entire thing alone. Well, I'm here to tell you, she opted not to do that. Now she's going online, going back and forth with Caitlin Clark fans, and she's subliminally still going on with a verbal assault against Caitlin Clark and her fan base. Bro, this whole thing is getting bad. And as of right now, to me, from the outside looking in, the WNBA has to do something. Now, I know everybody got like the freedom of speech and all of that, but when it starts turning into hate speech, that's where we got to draw the line. Because as of right now, it is looking like Caitlin Clark is a target simply because she's having a spectacular start of the season. All of this hate is starting because Caitlin Clark is whooping ass and taking names.
The Golden State Valkyries came into this matchup with a clear plan. Pressure Clark, bump her, trap her, make her uncomfortable before she gets into rhythm. That has become the league's favorite strategy against Caitlin Clark. Teams know if they let her walk into her offense, the game can change in seconds. One deep three, one full court pass, one transition push, one crowd explosion. Suddenly, the entire building belongs to her. So Golden State tried to stop that before it started, but this game proved something the rest of the WNBA should probably be worried about. When Caitlin Clark gets emotional, it does not always break her rhythm. Sometimes it sharpens it, and Tiffany Hayes found that out the hard way.
Yesterday we got the insane game. We got an insane game right here between Caitlin Clark versus Tiffany Hayes. And this is like good old fashioned. This is good old fashioned competitive basketball hatred. This is pure ball. Nothing more, nothing less. Yes, we have Caitlin Clark haters posting think pieces on threads, getting hundreds of likes saying that teams should sign dev players whose only purpose is to go out and injure Caitlin Clark. But like, you know that's going to happen. These threads is literally the most unhinged, like WNBA threads is the most unhinged place in the world. It is the most unhinged place in the world. And I came from the NBA 2K community. I didn't think it was going to get worse than 2K. 2K's most toxic gaming. I didn't realize it was going to get so much worse with this stuff. But Tip Hayes versus Caitlin Clark was a movie. First of all,
early in the game, Hayes came out aggressive. She attacked the rim. She hit tough shots. She played with confidence. And after one bucket, she started clapping right in Caitlin Clark's face. The cameras caught it. The crowd felt it. The benches noticed it. And in that moment, this stopped feeling like a normal regular season game.
In the defense of Caitlin did get away with more push-offs today than she normally does. But as a referee, if you're going to let her get mauled, you have to allow the push-off. That's what I was saying at the start of the year when Caitlin was getting called for the offensive fouls and push-offs. I'm like, if the referees are going to call people for hand-checking you at the halfway line, then obviously you can't push off. And I think Caitlin doesn't even get separation of the push-offs. It's actually frustrating. It really, really frustrates me in general when it comes down to Caitlin with the push-offs, because I'm like, she actually doesn't get anything from the push-offs. She does it out of habit. That is the most frustrating thing about it, is that like she does it out of habit. But like Caitlin Clark obviously getting into it immediately through this whole game. Like they were already getting into it a little bit. Tip Hayes was cooking Caitlin. This was a like old fashioned two players going at each other. Pure basketball shit talk. Like this is what you want to see. So Tip Hayes is trying to guard Caitlin. Boom. Caitlin, easy. I don't know what she's calling for. Caitlin got hacked before that, by the way. There's no contact there at all. But like immediately, Caitlin Clark from the logo here. Tip Hayes, I think, had scored in the previous possession. Caitlin Clark goes into that, and you see Tip Hayes during this. Watch Tip Hayes. She immediately makes contact with her. That could have been, like, I don't think it should have been. She had already landed, but like, I'm sorry, the bump there, that could have been a rebounding foul. That could have, and in the WNBA, that's an and one. In Europe, that's not an and one.
You could see Clark's face change. She was not smiling. She was not backing down. She looked angry, locked in, dangerous. And that is when the entire energy of the game shifted, because Tiffany Hayes was not just challenging Clark physically, she was challenging her emotionally. And that matters. Because ever since Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, players have tried to test her. They have bumped her. They have trapped her. They have picked her up full court. They have tried to speed her up, frustrate her, and prove she is not as special as the attention says she is. But this time, Clark did not shrink. She answered. And she answered in the coldest way possible.
We got to give credit where credit's due to Caitlin Clark, because this is where you're like, okay, yeah, this is a fucking demon. This is the player that we wanted to see. Washington woke it up. But Caitlin, you like that. Get out of my face. Come on, get it. And Maisha Hines-Allen immediately steps in to stop anything from happening. Like, this is a big thing. Like, Caitlin absolutely cooking Tip Hayes. That being said, to act like Tip Hayes didn't cook Caitlin with that step back earlier on in the game. Like, Tip Hayes absolutely cooked Caitlin. Absolutely cooked Caitlin here. And like, I gotta say, like, we're not gonna pretend that Tip Hayes didn't get hers. Caitlin won the game in the end, but Tip Hayes absolutely got hers.
Clark crossed half court. Hayes was right there. The defense was waiting. And without hesitation, Clark pulled up from ridiculous range. Splash, a logo 3. Right in the middle of the moment. But the shot was only half the story. Because after it dropped, Clark stepped toward Hayes. She stared her down, and she started talking back.
Now, unfortunately, Tiffany Hayes was just a victim. Now, we know that Caitlin Clark likes to talk smack and do her thing, but what athlete don't talk smack when they hot, on fire, and then you keep poking a bear? Like, why keep poking a bear? Now, mind you, they got to play the Valkyries again this upcoming Wednesday. Now, Caitlin Clark is at the Indy 500. Look like she's not tripping off none of this stuff involving Tiffany Hayes. She has not spoke about it. She has not tweeted about it. She is minding her own business, taking pictures with babies, out there being the Grand Marshal, well, the best Grand Marshal ever. Thousands of people walking up to get her autograph. But instead, we got this hate speech coming out of the pipeline in regards to Tiffany Hayes. Something has to be done, bruh. Something has to be done.
Golden State looked rattled. The shots that were falling early stopped looking easy. Drives to the rim became rushed. Layups started missing. Possessions got messy. And while the Valkyries were trying to regain control, Clark looked more comfortable with every minute. That is the part that should scare the rest of the league.
Today, Tiffany Hayes, she started a fight that she wasn't ready to engage in. As soon as Caitlin Clark stared her down after hitting a logo 3 in her face, said, hey, it's me and you, girl. What you got? From that moment on, Tiffany Hayes collapsed. ISO ball, she would get, they would switch CC onto her. She would try to take her to the rack. Tiffany Hayes throwing up garbage at the rim. Layups off the backboard, off the stanchion, missing the whole entire, missing it completely. Tiffany Hayes, she picked a fight with CC. She wasn't ready to get into it. And I'm saying she picked a fight because she started it. Caitlin Clark finished it.
Because this was not just Caitlin Clark hitting deep threes. This was the full Caitlin Clark package. Pull-up bombs, quick reads, thread the needle passes, transition pressure, mid-range shots, physical defense, and even hard screens. She finished with 22 points and 9 assists, barely missing another double-double while controlling the pace of the game. But the numbers do not fully explain what happened. Because this was about control. Clark controlled the tempo. She controlled the emotion. She controlled where the defense had to stand. And she controlled the crowd. Every time Golden State tried to make the game uncomfortable, Clark turned that discomfort into fuel. That is why this performance felt different. For months, critics have said the blueprint against Caitlin Clark is physical basketball. Make her work, make her angry, make her complain, make her rush. But against Golden State, that plan backfired. The more physical the game became, the more aggressive Clark became. The more Hayes talked, the more Clark responded. The more the Valkyries tried to trap her, the more she punished them with passes. And the moment they gave her space, she launched from a different area code. That is not easy to guard, because with Clark, defenders are stuck in a nightmare. If they sag off, she shoots. If they press up, she drives. If they trap, she passes. If they get physical, she gets fired up. And once she gets fired up, the game can completely flip.
Then at the end of the game, oh, I'm gonna cry about it. I'm gonna cry to the referees. They don't call anything. The Golden State Valkyrie tried their best to rough up Caitlin Clark yesterday. Natalie Nakaze, ooh, I figured Caitlin Clark out. She tried her best to rough her up. But something that you didn't know last year, Natalie, Cece was injured. So all of this, ooh, I have her figured out, that you were convincing yourself of. Perhaps not, Natalie. Perhaps not.
Aaliyah Boston dominated inside. She gave Indiana a real presence in the paint, attacking the glass and punishing Golden State around the rim. Kelsey Mitchell added scoring pressure. Sophie Cunningham brought energy and toughness. And the Fever started playing with a level of confidence that matched Clark's intensity. But make no mistake, this game belonged to Caitlin Clark. Because Boston could punish them inside because Clark was terrifying them outside. That is the hidden power of Caitlin Clark.
Now here we go on the other side. We got Tiffany Hayes taking it to the rack here. Tiffany Hayes taking it to the rack on Caitlin Clark. Starts clapping in Caitlin Clark's face. Takes it to the rack on Caitlin Clark. Starts clapping in Caitlin Clark's face. Jaws at her right after. Jaws at her right after. At this point, do you know what Caitlin Clark said? And I'm going to bring back our good old friend, someone who we miss dearly. Do you know what Caitlin Clark said here?
Was, hey coach, they woke a monster.
They woke a fucking monster. You're damn right, Christy. You are damn right. What did she say here?
You know, I just tried to keep her spirits. I mean, the thing she said was, hey coach, they woke a monster.
They woke a monster. Yeah, they woke the monster. they woke demon time Caitlin Clark. They woke up. Oh, fuck all this. Caitlin Clark. They woke up. Oh, you're gonna clap in my face? Caitlin Clark. They woke up the wrong side. You want to keep her calm. You know, you want to keep her calm. You want to keep her passive. You don't want to get her too fired up. You don't want to get her too charged up, because that's when the Mamba part of her comes out. That's when the I'm going to slit your neck part of Caitlin Clark on the basketball court, of course. I'm going to kill you on the court. Caitlin Clark comes out. I'm going to crush everything you love on the court. Caitlin Clark. That's when it comes out.
She does not just score points. She changes the geometry of the floor. Defenders pick her up near half court, help defenders lean toward her. Bigs have to step higher than they want to. Passing lanes open, teammates get cleaner looks, and every possession feels like it could turn into a highlight. That is why one logo 3 can feel bigger than 3 points. It changes the defense, it changes the crowd, it changes the confidence of both teams. And in this game, it changed Tiffany Hayes. Because after the trash talk escalated, Hayes never looked like she had the same rhythm again. That is what fans noticed immediately. She started the game with confidence. But once Clark fired back, the whole situation flipped. And after the game, the drama did not stop. When Hayes spoke post-game, fans felt she tried to downplay what happened. Instead of simply admitting Clark took over, the message was more about Golden State needing to fix the little things. But that is why the reaction online exploded. Because fans were not buying it. This did not feel like a few little things. This felt like Caitlin Clark taking the game away from them. You do not accidentally stop a player from pulling up near the logo. You do not accidentally stop a player who is throwing full court. That is the bigger story. Last season, teams tested Clark to see if she could handle the physicality. Now, when they test her, she responds with deeper shots, louder moments, and more confidence. That is a dangerous evolution. Because if Caitlin Clark combines elite shooting, elite passing, and this kind of killer mentality, the Fever become a completely different problem. She is not just a scorer. She is not just a passer. She is not just a draw. She is the player who changes the emotional temperature of a game. And that is why the Tiffany Hayes moment mattered so much. It gave Clark a target. It gave the crowd a reason to explode. And it gave the Fever the edge they needed. Some players get quieter when the game gets heated. Caitlin Clark got louder. Some players avoid the moment when defenders start talking. Clark walked straight into it. Some players try to calm everything down. Clark turned the chaos into a weapon. And that is why this moment is going to keep getting replayed. The logo 3. The stare down, the jawing, the physicality, the crowd reaction, the post-game debate. It all pointed to the same thing. Caitlin Clark is no longer just the player everyone is watching. She is becoming the player opponents are afraid of waking up. And that is why Tiffany Hayes may have made the biggest mistake of the night. She tried to get under Caitlin Clark's skin, but all she really did was unlock her. Because Clark did not just win the moment, she owned it. She made the shot, she talked back, she controlled the pace, and she reminded everyone that if you turn a Caitlin Clark game into a personal battle, you better be ready for what comes next. Tiffany Hayes did not expose Caitlin Clark. She exposed what happens when you make Caitlin Clark angry. So now the question is simple. Did Tiffany Hayes make a huge mistake by waking up Caitlin Clark? Or is this just the beginning of Clark taking over the entire WNBA? Let me know in the comments. And if you're still watching, drop Clark woke up in the comments.
The Indiana Fever defeat the Valkyries for the first time after last season getting swept by them in a game that I really wanted the Indiana Fever to win. Caitlin Clark was back in the lineup, and this thing at one point turned into the Caitlin Clark versus Tiffany Hayes duel. And man, it was competitive. They were talking junk to each other. They were firing up. It was physical. They were letting each other have it. And at the end of the day, Caitlin got the better of the situation, finished the game with 22 points, 9 boards, looking every bit like the MVP candidate that she is.
ESPN can talk about the numbers. The box score can show the final result. But what happened when Caitlin Clark faced the Golden State Valkyries was bigger than 22 points, 9 assists, and 4 made threes. This was the night the other side finally had to say the quiet part out loud. They tried to speed her up. They tried to get physical. They tried to throw different defensive looks at her. They tried to drag her into a street fight. And after all of that, Valkyries coach Natalie Nakasi still had to stand in front of a microphone and admit the truth.
What did Indiana do to get Caitlin Clark going? I think a lot, obviously, in transition. She flows really well. And then setting, a ton of ball screens. But we had, I think, a good coverage. I thought we had a good game plan. I just thought they were the more physical team. This is to me, they did play harder than us. Which again, that's who we are. We usually fight, with more physicality. We fight more together. And I think this game, give credit to Fever. They were ready. They were ready for the battle.
Caitlin Clark was unstoppable, because this was not just a regular season win for the Indiana Fever. This was a response, a statement, a warning shot to the rest of the league that if you give Caitlin Clark a reason, she will make you regret it. And Golden State gave her plenty. Before we even get to the second half, you have to understand the pressure Clark was carrying into this game.
So that was a lot of fun. The Indiana Fever showed a lot of fight against the Golden State Valkyries, because the Valkyries came out, they're a team, they have length, they have athleticism, they were hacking a little bit, and the Fever fought through it. Caitlin Clark fought through it. She had struggled against the Valkyries last year, not in this one. You know, she's been hitting the logo bombs. She's diming people up. Got the support from Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell. As always, Sophie Cunningham was good off the bench. Raven Johnson made a nice impression in her minutes, and it was nice to see the Fever fight and come away with a win.
The week leading into it had already been messy. There were questions about her injury timeline. There were narratives online. There were people trying to twist the story around when she knew she was out, when her family knew, and when the public found out. Clark addressed it directly.
Can you just take us through your Tuesday and Wednesday, both?
I was hoping you were going to ask. Okay.
Your practice and back.
So I woke up. Well, Tuesday, I was here. I got treatment, as I've done many practices before, as many of my teammates have done. Had every intention of playing. Didn't indicate I wasn't going to play. Approached Wednesday, if that was the day of our game, as I was 100% playing. Woke up Tuesday, felt a little sore. Texted our training staff, texted my personal physio. Then do you want to know what I ate for breakfast too? So then I had a filet, I had 2 eggs over medium, I had potatoes and 2 blueberry waffles with butter and syrup. Then I had PT at home. Then I came down here about like 1 o'clock and we tried to do everything we can. Got on the court, I lifted, went through a hard workout. And I actually went back and looked, because of all these narratives that are going crazy online, about when I told my mom I wasn't gonna play the game. 4:47 and you guys found out at 5:20. So one of the most important people in my life found out 40 minutes before you guys. So that's what my 2 days leading up to that Wednesday game looked like.
She explained that even one of the most important people in her life, her own mother, only found out shortly before the public did. In other words, the idea that there was some long, hidden cover-up did not make sense. The timeline was too tight. The facts did not support it. But the damage had already been done. Once a narrative gets repeated enough, people start treating it like truth. And Clark looked like someone who was done letting other people define the story for her. That matters, because great players do not just respond with words. They respond with the ball in their hands. And against the Valkyries, Clark walked into Gainbridge Fieldhouse with that edge.
What a game. The Indiana Fever have finally beaten the Golden State Valkyries, and this game, you could cut the tension with a knife. It was chippy. It almost felt kind of like a powder keg that could explode at any moment. There were a lot of fouls, and each team was given 2 techs. That is 4 techs for the entire game, including one that Caitlin had no idea about. Actually, Stephanie White also had no idea about, and they talked about it in the post-game presser.
Happened in that chippy moment with Solana at halftime that led to the double text.
I was just trying. Oh, did I get technical?
You did.
Oh, no way. That just makes sense for the rest of the night, so I'm not surprised. Wow. Wow, I could have got ejected. I should have been a little safer in the second half. Okay, well, guess I have some fines coming my way. And flagrant. Wow, you're paying a lot. Well.
Not wild, not out of control, but focused. Angry in the way great competitors get angry, where every little thing becomes fuel. Golden State had a plan. They knew they could not let her get comfortable. They wanted to make her work for every touch. They wanted to bother her, crowd her, hit her with pressure, and force the Fever into uncomfortable possessions.
Things got a little edgy there right before halftime. Salute to Caitlin for standing up for herself and not taking any stuff from the Valkyries. Man, I don't think this was one of these situations where girls are hating on Caitlin. I feel like this was just Caitlin going after the ball. The girl hit her with a chicken wing. This was you know, the girl should have let Caitlin foul her. Maybe they would have went to the line and got some cheap free throws. I do not think this has anything to do with girls hating on Caitlin. I did not get any of that from the Valkyries today, man. I just got that they're a tough team. Not like a tough as like the Raiders or the, you know, Detroit Pistons, but they're a tough, solid team. They play the right way. They're a very, very good team.
For a while, it felt like the game was heading in that direction. It was physical. It was tense. It had that feeling where every bump and every stare carried a little extra weight. And that tension finally boiled over before halftime. Clark went after a loose ball with Janelle Salon, and suddenly, it was not just a basketball play anymore. Salon got into Clark's face. Clark did not back away. The two had words. The benches started to react. Players had to step in before it turned into something bigger.
Now here we go on the other side. We got Tiffany Hayes taking it to the rack here. Tiffany Hayes taking it to the rack on Caitlin Clark. Starts clapping in Caitlin Clark's face. Takes it to the rack on Caitlin Clark. Starts clapping in Caitlin Clark's face. Jaws at her right after. Jaws at her right after. At this point, do you know what Caitlin Clark said? And I'm going to bring back our good old friend, someone who we miss dearly. Do you know what Caitlin Clark said here?
Was, hey coach, they woke a monster.
They woke a monster. You're damn right, Christy. You are damn right. What did she say here?
You know, I just tried to keep her spirits. I mean, the thing she said was, hey coach, they woke a monster.
They woke a monster. Yeah, they woke the monster. they woke demon time, Caitlin Clark. They woke up. Oh, this. Caitlin Clark. They woke up. Oh, you're gonna clap in my face? Caitlin Clark. They woke up the wrong side. You want to keep her calm. You know, you want to keep her calm. You want to keep her passive. You don't want to get her too fired up. You don't want to get her too charged up, because that's when the Mamba part of her comes out. That's when the I'm going to slit your neck part of Caitlin Clark on the basketball court, of course. I'm going to kill you on the court. Caitlin Clark comes out. I'm going to crush everything you love on the court. Caitlin Clark. That's when it comes out.
The officials handed out double technicals, one to Clark, one to Salon, and that moment changed the entire temperature of the game. Because here is the thing about Caitlin Clark. She does not need the game to be calm. She does not need everybody to like her. She does not need the defense to play nice. In fact, sometimes the more chaotic it gets, the more dangerous she becomes. That double technical did not take her out of the game mentally. It switched her on.
Oh, you hate to see it. Caitlin Clark, logo threes, FU threes, 3-level score, taking it to the rack, mid-range fadeaways, FUs. Love to see it. Her and Tiffany Hayes going head-to-head, face-to-face at half court. Caitlin Clark pulling up from long range. Tiffany Hayes turning around, looking at CC. Caitlin Clark says, let's go. Me and you right now. And as soon as that occurred, Tiffany Hayes couldn't hit a layup for the rest of the game. As soon as that moment transpired, Tiffany Hayes was too worried about sticking it to CC. She forgot how to play basketball. Ooh, it was bad.
Golden State probably thought they were dragging her into their kind of fight. But what they actually did was give her the emotional spark she needed. And when the second half started, Clark came out like a completely different problem. She brought the ball up the floor. The game was tight. The crowd was waiting. The defense was trying to settle in. Clark did not wait. She stepped into a deep three from way beyond the arc and buried it. That was the moment, not just because of the shot, but because of what it said. After all the noise, after the physicality, after the double technical, right back. That part matters. Because Hayes is not some random player. She is a veteran. She is tough. She has been around the league. She knows how to compete. And Clark looked completely comfortable standing in that moment and giving it back. That is what people miss when they only talk about Clark as a shooter. Yes, the logo threes are ridiculous. Yes, the passing is elite. Yes, the range changes the geometry of the floor, but the real problem is her nerve. She does not shrink when the moment gets loud. She gets sharper.
This is the junior goon squad to last year's Tina Charles, Marina Mabry-led Connecticut Sun. That is what the Golden State Valkyries tried to turn into with Caitlin Clark, but it did not matter because my demon was on timing and she tore him up. We got to get into Maisha Hines-Allen on this one. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification, hype the video. That'd be greatly appreciated. We got to get into it. So there was a few mix-ups here in this game versus the Golden State Valkyries. And what I noticed and what many people noticed was Maisha Hines-Allen was not hesitant. She was sprinting front and center. Who said what? Who trying to do what? Who trying to touch 22? What you want to do? We love that. We love that because for so long we watched Caitlin Clark get targeted and get flagrantly fouled, people poking her in the eye, people knocking her to the floor when the game is not even in play, and none of her teammates would step up and defend her. That's a part of the reason why Sophie Cunningham went up to 1 million followers overnight, because we saw, okay, she understands the benefits that she's gonna get coming to play with Caitlin Clark, the style of play, all of the off the court stuff, but at least she's willing to do her part and protect the GOAT. That's part of the reason why we love Sophie Cunningham, and that's just a fact.
From there, Indiana started to look like the version of the Fever that should scare people. Clark was not just hunting shots. She was controlling the entire game. She was reading coverages. She was finding the gaps. She was forcing Golden State to make impossible choices. Step up too high and she finds the roll. Drop too far and she shoots. Overhelp and she hits the open player. Stay home and she attacks the mismatch.
Let's start. Caitlin Clark, 22 points, 9 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 stocks. Caitlin Clark through 57 games is more points than Diana Taurasi, more assists than anyone, more threes than anyone, witnessing a legendary run. And so far, Caitlin Clark this season, 3rd in points per game at 23.8, 1st in assists, and 1st in 3-pointers made. Looking at the box score for the Valkyrie, it was bad.
That is why Nakasi's post-game comments mattered so much, because coaches can live with one great shot maker. They can build schemes around taking away one action. But Clark is not just one action. She is the system. They guessed wrong, Clark punished them. The biggest winner from that was Aaliyah Boston. Boston had a monster game. 20 points, 16 rebounds, 8 made shots. She controlled the paint, cleaned the glass, and gave Indiana the inside force they needed. But what made it even more important was how connected she looked with Clark. That Clark-Boston partnership is the Fever's ceiling. When Clark is getting downhill, pulling defenders out of position, and delivering the ball on time, Boston becomes a nightmare. She does not have to force touches. She does not have to create everything from a standstill. She can catch it in rhythm, seal deep, finish strong, and punish the defense for paying too much attention to Clark. That is the part the rest of the league has to worry about. Because when Clark is only scoring, she is dangerous. But when Clark is scoring and unlocking Boston, the Fever becomes something much bigger. They become a team with structure, balance, inside-out pressure, and a real identity. That is what Nakasi had to admit after the game. Golden State had a plan. They had effort. They had physicality. They had defenders willing to make Clark uncomfortable. And still, it did not work. Because Caitlin Clark adjusted. She found the weak spots. She found the passing windows. She found the moments to strike. That is what separates a great shooter from a great engine. A shooter can get hot. An engine changes everything around her. And right now, that is what Clark is becoming for the Fever. This win was not just about Indiana beating Golden State 90-82. It was about what the game revealed. Clark can take the hit. She can take the noise. She can take the trash talk. She can take the media storm. And still come out in the second half and control the entire building. That is why this game felt different. It was not perfect. It was not clean. It was not some easy highlight reel against a team that gave up. It was messy, physical, emotional. And Clark still bent the game in her direction. That is what stars do. But more importantly, that is what franchise players do. They do not just survive pressure, they turn it into separation. And the Valkyries learned that lesson in real time. They tried to make Caitlin Clark uncomfortable. Instead, they woke her up. And once she got rolling, even their own coach had no choice but to admit it. Caitlin Clark is unstoppable. And if this is the version of Clark the Fever are getting now, angry, healthy, locked in, talking back, hitting from deep, and feeding Aaliyah Boston in rhythm, the rest of the WNBA has a real problem. Because this does not look like a player trying to find herself. This looks like a player who already knows exactly who she is. And now the league is being forced to deal with it.
Fires for three. It's her first one of the night. Force another turnover. Clark, the quick pass, whips it right to Cunningham. I mean, look at, she had to thread that needle right in front of Gabby Williams. Inside a minute left to play here in the first half. Mitchell driving, will toss it up, count it.
My God, bro. Oh my God, is all I can say about this game, man. It's like a minute and some change left in this game. About to get it pulled up for you guys right now. Caitlin Clark just turned the ball over. The crowd gotta be getting to Caitlin. But what's more importantly is these damn WNBA referees doing what they do. Altering the damn game. I mean, flopping is all over the place.
Caitlin Clark just made WNBA history. But somehow, the Indiana Fever still walked out of San Francisco with the worst feeling in basketball.
Wow. To say that was a tough watch, that would be an understatement. We got nothing we asked for, and we got everything we didn't want. The offense looked atrocious. The chicken with the head cut off offense looks bad. Stephanie White had Caitlin Clark off ball more tonight than anything we've seen so far this season. Not only off ball, but Caitlin Clark was left on an island all by herself all night long.
Because this was supposed to be the night Indiana proved something. This was supposed to be the night they walked into Golden State, beat the Valkyries again, and showed the rest of the WNBA that their offense was not just exciting. It was serious. Instead, the Fever lost 90-88. And the part that makes this one sting is not just the final score. It is that Caitlin Clark reached a milestone no guard in WNBA history had ever reached this fast. And Indiana still let the game slip away.
We stayed up for that? Question mark? Yeah, we did. Oh, Aaliyah Boston. Can we just keep it real? Are we seeing $6 million worth of basketball out of Aaliyah Boston? I'm just wondering. I'm officially saying it out loud. I mean, Lord knows, like I say, I'm hanging out in the Ben Daniel watch party stream. I got to tell you, Leah Boston takes a lot of heat in there. And as she should. Takes the last shot. Had multiple opportunities to do something in this game. Nah, forget about it. I'm still not exactly sure what offensive philosophy Stephanie White's got going on. If Caitlin Clark does not, once again, I'm going to say it, if Caitlin Clark does not take over a game, they lose. And by the way, Raven Johnson should have been on the floor a hell of a lot more tonight. Plain and simple. I mean, Raven Johnson should have been on the floor more tonight than she was. Kelsey Mitchell, yikes.
Clark entered the night sitting on 497 career assists. She only needed 3 more to hit 500, and when it happened exactly how you would expect. Not with a quiet pass, not with a basic swing pass, but with Clark seeing the floor 2 steps ahead of everybody else, hitting teammates in rhythm and turning a regular possession into a moment. By the second quarter, she had reached 500 assists in just her 59th WNBA game.
History tonight. We gonna talk about it, man, in an iconic fashion. She ended up making her 500 assists to Sophie Cunningham, but the referees is still in the show. Just ultimately still in the show. Whatever it was today is shit on Caitlin Clark day. I don't know. That's what I'm feeling like. But overall, team stats is horrible. Shout out to Raven Johnson. She showed up. Kelsey Mitchell, don't never pass the damn ball. I mean, they was beating her ball out of the damn arena. Every time she got the ball, they just knew she was finna shoot the ball. Like, why? They know you finna shoot it. Pass the damn ball, Kelsey. I mean, my goodness. 24 fouls called on the fucking Fever tonight. Excuse my language, bro. 19 calls We're now 20 on Golden State. I'm furious right now, bro, because that's how bad this game has been. Stephanie White, put Caitlin on the ball. Stephanie White, put Caitlin off the ball. Like, damn, Stephanie, make up your mind. Then Caitlin Clark sat majority of the damn third quarter. This was just buffoonery. Just buffoonery, bro.
That is not normal. Sue Bird, one of the greatest point guards ever, previously held the mark at 82 games. Clark did it 23 games faster. That is why this game should have been remembered as a Caitlin Clark celebration. But Golden State had other ideas, and that is where the story turns. Because the Valkyries did not treat this like Clark's record night. They treated it like revenge. Just days earlier, Indiana had beaten Golden State 90-82. Clark had 22 points and 9 assists in that game. Aaliyah Boston was dominant. The Fever controlled the second half, and for the first time, Indiana looked like they had finally solved this matchup.
What a game. The Indiana Fever have finally beaten the Golden State Valkyries, and this game, you could cut the tension with a knife. It was chippy. It almost felt kind of like a powder keg that could explode at any moment. There were a lot of fouls, and each team was given 2 techs. That is 4 techs for the entire game, including one that Caitlin had no idea about. Actually, Stephanie White also had no idea about, and they talked about it in the post-game presser.
Happened in that chippy moment with Solana at halftime that led to the double text.
I was just trying. Oh, did I get technical?
You did.
Oh, no way. That just makes sense for the rest of the night, so I'm not surprised. Wow, I could have got ejected. I should have been able to save in the second half. Okay, well, guess I have some fines coming my way. And probably grant. Wow, you're paying a lot tonight. Well.
But in San Francisco, Golden State flipped the script. They did not panic when Indiana made runs. They did not get pulled into a track meet. They did what good defensive teams do. They made the game uncomfortable. Before tip-off, this matchup already had a simple identity. Indiana came in as the highest scoring offense in the league, putting up nearly 94 points a game. Golden State came in as the team allowing the fewest points in the league. So this was not just Fever versus Valkyries, this was pace versus pressure. Clark's passing versus Golden State's discipline. Indiana's firepower versus the one team built to drag them into a fight. And by the end, Golden State won that fight. The Fever actually had chances. That is what makes this loss frustrating.
My goodness, dog. They had 37 total rebounds so far, Golden State Valkyries. Bro, they had 29 defensive rebounds. Again, bro, they still giving up a lot of defensive rebounds. I don't care that they had 27. Why are we giving up 29? Why are we giving up 29? And for the life of me, why do the referees hate Aaliyah Boston so much? Because I don't know, guys. Look at this. Look at these plays right here. Let me get this pulled up because this game is finna be over, bro. This game is finna be over, bro. I'm hella mad. Look at this. How the hell can we win when they look at this flop? You ain't even get hit. She ain't even get hit in the head, dog. She didn't get hit in the head. Y'all see this? Bro, this has been all day. Bro. I don't know what it is. Caitlin Clark just cannot get in rhythm there at the Chase Center for the life of me. She had 2 crucial turnovers. Oh, my God, man. I'm going to hear about this on Whitlock tomorrow, bro. I mean, my goodness.
This was not a blowout. This was not Indiana getting run out of the building. This was a 2-point game, and those are the ones that stay with you. Indiana trailed after the first quarter, but responded with a strong second. They put up 30 points in the quarter, pushed back against Golden State's physicality, and went into the second half still very much alive. But every time the Fever looked ready to take control, the Valkyries answered. A stop, a tough bucket, a loose ball. A possession where Indiana needed calm, but Golden State created chaos. And in games like this, chaos is usually bad news for the road team. The fourth quarter became the difference. Golden State won the final period 25-21. That might not sound like much, but in a 2-point game, it is everything. That is 1 empty Fever possession, 1 missed rotation, 1 rushed shot, 1 defensive rebound that does not get secured, and suddenly Clark's historic night becomes a footnote inside a loss.
All type of different looks. They had several players. I mean, Caitlin might have seen like 4 or 5 different defenders this game, bro. I mean, I'm damn near lost for words, y'all. Like, I'm trying my best to get through this video, man. How many points Caitlin Clark got right now? Caitlin got 16 points. She made all her free throws. She had 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals. 3 of 12 from the field. 2 of 6 from three-point land. Now, the Indiana Fever was shooting 44% from 3 going into the half, but at one point in this game, Golden State Valkyries went on a 13-2 run, bro. 13-2 run. So the Indiana Fever dropped all the way down to 32% from 3. 32%. They was at 44% going into the half, dog.
That is the brutal part. Because Caitlin Clark did her job as a playmaker. She made history. She kept the ball moving. She gave Indiana enough creation to be right there at the end. But the Fever still could not finish the job. And this is where Indiana has to ask the harder question. Are they just exciting, or are they ready to be ruthless? Because exciting teams can score 90. Ruthless teams close the game. Exciting teams create highlights.
44%. And these damn referees, my goodness, man. I mean, no, the commentators, this has been a horrible game. Just a horrible game. They shot 29 of 70 from the damn field. Just, my goodness, bro. My goodness. They had 11 blocks. A majority of them blocks was on Kelsey Mitchell, bro. Caitlin Clark looked pissed. Just pissed this game. I can't blame CC, man. So right now, they're doing a timeout, a booth review or something. I don't know, bro.
Ruthless teams get the stop when the arena is loud and the other team smells blood. The Fever have the talent. Nobody is questioning that. Clark changes the geometry of the floor every time she crosses half court. Defenses stretch out further than they want to. Passing lanes open that do not exist for other players. Teammates get cleaner looks because everyone in the building is staring at number 22. But Golden State showed the blueprint again. Make Indiana work. Make Clark see bodies. Make every pass, every catch, every entry, every screen feel just a little more difficult. And if you keep it close late, force the Fever to win the ugly possessions. That is where Indiana still has to grow. Because this was not just about one game in May. This was about what happens when the Fever run into a team that does not care about the hype. Golden State did not care that Clark was making history. They did not care that the Fever had beaten them days earlier. They did not care that Indiana had the more explosive offense. They turned it into a possession-by-possession test, and Indiana came up 2 points short. But here is why this loss will get attention. Caitlin Clark's records are becoming so normal that people almost forget how insane they are. Fastest to 1,000 points. Fastest to 500 assists. Already changing how teams defend. Already carrying the attention of the league every time she plays. And now she is doing things faster than legends. But the Fever are entering a dangerous stage. Because when your superstar is making history, the expectations change. Close losses are no longer cute. Moral victories are gone. When Clark delivers a record night, Indiana cannot afford to waste it. That is why this game matters. Not because the Fever lost by 2, but because they lost on a night that should have belonged to Caitlin Clark. Golden State stole the ending. The Valkyries got the win. And Indiana now has to sit with the same uncomfortable truth. Caitlin Clark can make history. But the Fever still have to learn how to finish. And if they do not, nights like this will keep turning from celebration into regret. If you're still watching, drop History Wasted in the comments.
Dominant teams in the league over the last 2 years, and the Clark will control the tip.
Here's Clark already working off ball, gets the pass from Hull. Enxler will defend her, the slip to Boston, the finish at the cup. Double figures. Hull from outside, her first miss against the Fire this season. Clark, offensive rebound, puts it in and sticks the jumper. Boston, the handoff to Clark. Clark corralled by two. Clark, another jumper off the heel, tapped alive by Boston. Clark in the paint. Retrieves the dribble. Mitchell, what a cut, what a delivery from Clark. Clark, eyes down the floor, up ahead, Boston, great catch, the vision from Clark, it's into the rim, and Indiana sprints out to an 8-2 lead.
Tell me I'm lying, bro. Tell me this is clickbait. People like to say John the clickbaiter. Tell me I'm lying, that it ain't no conspiracy. You can't tell me on God's green earth that there is no conspiracy against Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark made WNBA history, and somehow that was not the biggest story of the night, because by the time the Indiana Fever walked off the floor after a brutal 90-88 loss to the Golden State Valkyries, nobody was talking like this was just another close game. They were talking about the refs.
Gotta be getting to Caitlin. But what's more importantly is these damn WNBA referees doing what they do. Altering the damn game. I mean, flopping is all over the place.
They were talking about missed calls. They were talking about Aaliyah Boston sitting at the post-game press conference, clearly furious, saying the Valkyries sold the contact and the refs bought it.
So the Indiana Fever were victims of the dark arts today. They were victims of the dark arts, or yesterday, by the Golden State Valkyries. And it is a frustrating one, but it sometimes works. It sometimes works. And obviously Aaliyah Boston was not happy. In her post-game press conference, she basically as much as said, yeah, well, they tricked the refs. Fair play to them, they tricked the refs. Which that is the case.
And they were talking about Caitlin Clark taking contact all night, getting elbowed in the face late, and still watching the whistle disappear when Indiana needed it most.
This right here is another video reaction of the Indiana Fever defense. Somebody said, my hat's off to you, Stephanie White. It takes an utter genius to coach this bad, no talents, no timeouts left. The end of the fourth quarter, didn't get teed up, protests, shady refs, nothing. Let's watch.
Clark to Aaliyah Boston. And then Monique Billings, I haven't seen her do one thing all season. What a letdown. Traveled. And then Caitlin Clark gets the offensive rebound, put back, splashes a jumper. Finds Kelsey Mitchell. We're doing great. Fast break offense, Caitlin Clark to Aaliyah Boston. I'm loving it, 8-2. Then they call 6 fouls in a row. Monique Billings, there was one. Look at this, she touches the ball for 1 second. Where's the foul? And then Caitlin Clark, if anything, she got elbowed. There's Caitlin Clark's first foul. Somebody tell me where's the foul. There was 2. Watch this. Hines Allen, hands straight up. There's 3 in a row. Raven Johnson, there's 4 fouls consecutively. And then watch Hines Allen.
Now, you guys remember when I first started Alive? Those of you guys who's been watching Alive since the beginning.
This was supposed to be Caitlin Clark's record night. Instead, it turned into one of the most controversial Fever losses of the season. And when you watch how this game ended, it is not hard to understand why Fever fans are saying the same thing. The refs stole this one. Because Clark still made history, she became the fastest player in WNBA history to reach 500 career assists.
Tonight, we gonna talk about it, man, in an iconic fashion. She ended up making her 500 assists to Sophie Cunningham, but the referees is still in the show. Just ultimately still in the show. Whatever it was today is shit on Caitlin Clark day. I don't know. That's what I'm feeling like. But overall, team stats is horrible. Shout out to Raven Johnson. She showed up. Kelsey Mitchell, don't never pass the damn ball. I mean, they was beating her ball out of the damn arena. Every time she got the ball, they just knew she was finna shoot the ball. Like, why? They know you finna shoot it. Pass the damn ball, Kelsey. I mean, my goodness. 24 fouls called on the fucking Fever tonight. Excuse my language, bro. 19 calls. We're now 20 on Golden State. I'm furious right now, bro, because that's how bad this game has been. Stephanie White, put Caitlin on the ball. Stephanie White, put Caitlin off the ball. Like, damn, Stephanie, make up your mind. Did Caitlin Clark set majority of the damn third quarter? This was just buffoonery. Just buffoonery, bro.
That is not a normal milestone. That is superstar territory. That is league-changing territory. That is the kind of record that should have been the headline everywhere. But the game around that moment was a mess. Golden State did not just guard Clark. They chased her, bumped her, crowded her, grabbed at her, and made every single catch feel like a fight. And to be clear, the Valkyries deserve credit for the defensive pressure. They came in with a plan. They knew Clark could shoot from anywhere. They knew she could break a defense with one pass, so they threw bodies at her all night. But there is a difference between physical defense and getting away with contact because the officials refused to call it both ways. And that is where this game went off the rails. Aaliyah Boston was the first major warning sign.
That is what they did. Their goal was, we are going to do all of the dark arts. We're going to shove on every rebound. If you are boxing her out, we're going to push on every rebound. We're going to hand check on every possession. We're going to be extra physical. It was one of these things where they came out in this game and was like, we are going to make the referees have to ref the game. And the referees did not ref the game. And the Fever were soft. I cannot stress it enough. The Fever were soft. But, big but, Aaliyah Boston stays in this game, they might win. Like, Amihar is literally she just flopped. She flopped the entire game. It was the most shameless thing I've ever seen. So Aaliyah gets called for that. And then Amihar, like, Aaliyah doesn't go near her here. Amihar just, like, flops. This is just fighting for post position. Veronica Burton's there laughing. She's there laughing. Like, that's another flop. And this is even the worst of them. Like, Amihar might as well just be known as the fish from now on. That is her nickname. Because this is the most ridiculous one I've ever seen.
Boston finished with 13 points and 6 rebounds, but that box score does not tell the real story. She never got to settle into the game because the whistles followed her from the start. Every time Boston tried to establish position, every time she tried to use her size, every time she tried to play through contact, the refs seemed ready to call her for an offensive foul. And after the game, Boston did not hide how she felt. She basically said it was hard to figure out how the refs were calling the game because defenders were getting charge calls when they were not even in legal position.
Yeah, Aaliyah, you had those 2 early fouls and had to sit for most of the first half. How does that affect your flow and your speed?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't even able to get into a flow. I mean, I played the second half. I think it's super hard to try and figure out and understand how the refs are calling it. I think it's super hard to get charge fouls when I don't think anyone's in legal position. I mean, shout out to the Valks. I mean, they did a great job selling it, and the refs bought it, to be honest, so good for them.
That is not just frustration. That is a player saying the standard made no sense. And that mattered because Boston is one of the few players on Indiana's roster who can punish teams inside. When she is on the floor, defenders have to respect the paint. When she is stuck on the bench in foul trouble, everything becomes harder for Clark. Golden State knew that. Once Boston was limited, they could crowd Clark even more. They could pack the passing lanes. They could sit on Indiana's guards. They could make every possession feel rushed. And that is exactly what happened. Clark still fought through it. She finished with 16 points, 6 assists, 3 steals, and a perfect 8 for 8 from the free throw line. But the flow was gone. The rhythm was gone. The space was gone. And yet, despite all of that, Indiana still had a real chance to win. That is what makes the final minutes so painful, because this was not a blowout where fans are blaming the refs just to cope. This was a 2-point game. 2 points. One whistle changes everything. One correct call changes the entire ending. And the call everyone is talking about came late, when Veronica Burton made contact with Clark's face on an inbounds play. The Fever were right there. The game was still alive. The moment was huge. And Clark took contact high. That is the kind of play that should get reviewed seriously.
10 feet and Caitlin Clark would have probably got a turnover and a foul. And then they called this a foul on Caitlin after they just did 2 offensive fouls they didn't call. And then look at this. She slaps down on Hines Allen's arms. Look at that. Look at her right arm. You could clearly see her grab that right arm. Look at that. She was holding it and it flops up. Look at this late call. It took until Aaliyah Boston had the rebound for this stupid ref to call this thing a foul, which wasn't even a foul. This is crazy. And then Aaliyah Boston hits the 3 ball, and then Raven Johnson brings it within 2 with 4 minutes left. Kelsey Mitchell with the reverse layup, and we're in this ball game. Caitlin Clark comes and splashes a 3. We're down by 1. Aaliyah Boston with like a fadeaway puts us up by 1. Like I said, Lexi Hull with the basket, and we got this. But then what did the refs do? Call another foul on nothing. Like, it's crazy. And then look at this. Lexi gets pushed in the back on the missed free throw. And they don't call that one either. And then Caitlin Clark, Fever down by 3, gets elbowed in the nose. So they get the ball back. Caitlin Clark finds Sophie Cunningham, who gets a basket. And we're back in this ball game. And we had a chance to tie it right here. And then one more chance to tie it. And Aaliyah Boston comes up. It was just a really tough loss. But we are not where we need to be yet. Probably played our worst game of the season. Refs were horrible. And we lost by 2.
That is the kind of play where the league's own standard on contact to the head or face should matter. That is the kind of play where Indiana could have ended up with free throws and the ball in a 1-possession game. Instead, nothing. No flagrant, no real punishment, no moment where the refs stepped in and protected the player who had been getting hit, grabbed, and pressured all night. And that is why fans exploded, because earlier in the same game, Caitlin Clark was hit with a flagrant for a screen. So when the officials can find a flagrant on Clark, but cannot find one when Clark takes contact to the face, people are obviously going to ask questions.
And again, this is a flagrant foul. I actually don't care. I don't care what anyone says. You cannot elbow somebody in the face. It looked worse. You cannot elbow somebody in the face. You can't. That is a flagrant foul. That is a flagrant. You cannot. It is an unlucky flagrant, but you cannot elbow somebody in the face. And you know if that was a Fever player, it would be called. Because she gets the first, Veronica Burton had already gotten Caitlin Clark. She had already fouled Caitlin Clark. Then Caitlin kind of steps into her and she gets her. You cannot do this. You cannot get someone an elbow to the face. There's no such thing as incidental elbows to the face. That is a flagrant or a technical foul or something.
That is not just a bad look. That is the exact kind of inconsistency that makes fans say the game looked rigged. And the Fever still almost survived it. Raven Johnson gave Indiana a massive lift off the bench. She scored 16 points on 7 of 10 shooting. And honestly, without her, this game probably gets away from Indiana much earlier. She brought pace. She brought energy. She attacked the defense. And on a night where so many of Indiana's main options looked stuck, Johnson looked fearless. Sophie Cunningham also gave the Fever important minutes and knocked down the shot that turned Clark's pass into the record-breaking assist. That should have been the moment. Clark to Cunningham, 500 career assists, fastest in WNBA history. A historic pass on a night where the Fever were fighting through everything. But instead of becoming the celebration, it became the setup for the outrage. Because Indiana still lost, and yes, Stephanie White deserves some heat too. The Fever's late-game offense was rough. There were possessions where Clark was not used enough. There were moments where Indiana seemed to forget that their best creator, their best shooter, and their biggest pressure point was standing right there. On one key late possession, Clark was open. The Fever went elsewhere. The result failed. That cannot happen. when Caitlin Clark has already made history, when the game is hanging by a thread, and when the defense is terrified of her, you have to make the other team deal with her. You cannot let the game end with your superstar watching the biggest moment happen away from her. So yes, coaching matters, execution matters, turnovers matter, but none of that erases the officiating. Because when Boston is removed from the game by questionable charge calls, Indiana's structure changes. When Clark gets hit and does not get the whistle, Indiana loses chances. When one team is allowed to be physical and the other team is punished for trying to match it, the entire game tilts. And that is why this loss feels bigger than one night. The Fever are not just trying to win random regular season games. They are trying to build around Caitlin Clark. They are trying to become a real contender. They are trying to prove this roster can survive when Clark does not have a superhuman game every single night. But how are they supposed to do that if the standard changes every time the game gets physical? How is Boston supposed to dominate inside if defenders can fall backwards and get rewarded? How is Clark supposed to keep rewriting history if opponents are allowed to wear her down off the ball, grab her, bump her, and then still escape the biggest calls late? That is the real story. Caitlin Clark made history. Aaliyah Boston called out the way the game was officiated. Indiana lost by 2, and the refs became the center of the whole conversation. The Valkyries got the win, but the Fever walked away feeling like something was taken from them. And honestly, after watching the way this game was called, it is hard to blame them. Because Clark's record night should have been remembered for greatness. Instead, it will be remembered for the whistle. So now the question is simple. Did the Fever lose this game, or did the refs take it from them? Drop your verdict in the comments. And if you're still watching, comment rigged record, so I know you saw the whole breakdown.
Double figures. Hull from outside, her first miss against the Fire this season. Clark, offensive rebound, puts it in and sticks the jumper.
Stephanie White, Kelly Krauskopf, Amber Cox, and that damn sports psychologist employed by the Indiana Fever. Congratulations, you four. You guys have successfully broken Caitlin Clark. Great job. You guys have tried your damnedest to turn her into a role player. You guys have tried your damnedest to just make her, take a step back. Let everybody else get the shine. Swing the ball. You don't got to do it all by yourself, Caitlin. We're here for you. We're here for you.
Did Caitlin Clark's 4 words just end the Stephanie White era? After another brutal Indiana Fever loss, Caitlin Clark walked up to the podium, got asked about the officiating, and dropped 4 calm little words. Officiating wasn't my problem.
If any of the officiating rule changes are impacting how you're able to play as a team defensively?
Officiating wasn't our problem tonight.
Caitlin, you have.
On the surface, that sounds harmless. But when you look at what just happened on the court and what's been brewing behind the scenes for weeks, those 4 words might have just started the countdown on the Stephanie White era in Indiana.
It's over. It's over, guys. Caitlin Clark is mentally checked out. She's done. She's done. She's done with Stephanie White. She's done with Stephanie White. Look at this here. This is a player that is mentally done. Stephanie White, congratulations. You have mentally defeated Caitlin Clark. She's done. This thing is over. I'm letting it be known once again. I'm rooting for Caitlin Clark 100%. While rooting for Caitlin Clark, I will be rooting for the Indiana Fever to lose games in order to get Stephanie White fired. I am done with this crap. It's over. We should never see Caitlin Clark like that. This is the greatest thing she is the greatest thing that has ever happened to this league. And Stephanie White has done everything she can to completely ruin her. Look at that.
Because this wasn't a random slip in a press conference. It was the latest crack in a relationship that's been falling apart for weeks. From bizarre substitution patterns to an epic contract extension she refuses to sign, to insiders whispering that things have turned shockingly cold. So the question is simple. Did those 4 words just end the Stephanie White era, or are we all reading too much into it?
Growing speculations that Caitlin Clark wants out of Indiana by any means necessary. This is the word on the street. Fever insiders are allegedly leaking information that Connor is no longer at Butler. And Butler is definitely stunned that he basically resigned allegedly from his position. There is growing notion that Caitlin Clark is not about to sign that epic deal, the same deal that Aaliyah Boston signed this season.
Let's start with the night everything boiled over. Caitlin actually opened that game in Portland, doing exactly what you expect from her. In about 3 minutes, she had 2 points, 3 assists, a rebound, and the Fever were up 8-4. She was in control of the pace, finding teammates, reading the floor, the usual Caitlin Clark script. And then, out of nowhere, with around 6.5 minutes left in the first quarter, Stephanie White pulls both Caitlin and Aaliyah Boston. Your 2 offensive engines are suddenly sitting on the bench.
Okay, Joe, while there are many moments of frustration for the Indiana Fever in their 184 loss to Portland Fire Saturday night, the one that got the most attention involved the sideline exchange between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White. At one point in the game, a fan caught a video of White and Caitlin arguing on the bench during the break in the action, presumably over defense. Let's look at this video.
Portland immediately responds with a 13-2 run. That 8-4 lead turns into a 17-10 deficit before Caitlin even gets back on the floor. The entire momentum of the game flips while your franchise player watches from the sideline. After the game, when White is asked what changed, she doesn't mention the substitution. She says Portland was the hungrier team, that their competitive spirit was better. She points to Boston being on a minutes restriction and calls it a typical substitution pattern for when they take Caitlin out too.
Portland took time out, kind of to split the script. Just what changed either on their end or on your end?
I just thought they were the hungrier team. I thought that they played with a relentless, effort, a relentless pursuit to get to what they wanted, to be disruptive on defense, to get to their spots on offense. I thought their competitive spirit was better than ours.
And Caitlin had 3 assists in the first 3 minutes of the game. Then both her and Aaliyah checked out, I think, around the 6:30 mark. Then Portland went on a 13-2 run. Just what was the reasoning for checking them out, or did they either of them request a sub?
Well, AB's still in a minutes restriction, so she's coming out. And typically that's around the same time that we've been taking Caitlin out before. We didn't in Golden State just because, quite honestly, we didn't Raven in that environment without another ball handler on the floor. So that's been our typical substitution pattern.
In other words, nothing to see here. This is just the plan. But that's exactly the problem. When your plan is to pull your best player 3 minutes into a game she's already controlling, and you stick to that plan no matter what the court is screaming at you, that's not coaching. That's management by routine.
If I'm CBS, if I'm NBC, if I'm USA, if I'm any of these networks that agreed to say, you know what, we'll take some WNBA, but we want the Indiana Fever. And that's the version of the Indiana Fever you're going to get. What we just saw yesterday, that's the version of the Indiana Fever that we're going to get. The Stephanie White ball. Caitlin Clark not going rogue. When Caitlin Clark goes rogue, yeah, these networks get exactly what they asked for. They get exactly what they get every penny of what they asked for. But when she doesn't go rogue, when she plays within the system, when she gets subbed out 3 minutes into the game, and then plays for a few minutes, then subbed out again, and then plays for a few minutes, then subbed out again, well, they don't get what they're asking for. Caitlin Clark looked beat down on that bench. And I don't think it's the outside noise. Please. It's inside the building. It's inside the house. It's the coach. It's the general manager. It's the president. And it's the sports psychologist convincing her that all three of them are right in what they're doing.
A real coach reads the game, recognizes when a star is locked in, and keeps her out there until the other team solves the problem. That didn't happen. Now fast forward to the press conference. A reporter asks Caitlin if the new officiating rules are affecting how the Fever can defend. It's the perfect setup for a rant. Nobody in this league has more reason to torch the refs than Caitlin Clark. She gets bumped, grabbed, and hit every single game. Clips of her getting hammered with no whistle are all over social media. Instead, she looks at the reporter and says calmly, "Officiating wasn't our problem tonight."
If any of the officiating rule changes are impacting how you're able to play as a team defensively?
Officiating wasn't our problem tonight.
Caitlin, you have.
That's it. 4 words. She doesn't take the bait. She doesn't turn it into a ref story. She takes officiating off the table completely. So if the problem wasn't the refs, what was it? Everyone who watched that game already knows the answer. The rotations, the philosophy, the way this team is being run. Those 4 words didn't protect the officials. They silently redirected blame back toward the bench. She never says Stephanie White's name. She doesn't have to. The truth is, this isn't about one substitution in one game. It's about a system that seems designed to mute the very things that make Caitlin Clark Caitlin Clark.
They're whispering things to each other. This is after the crash out. This is after all of that. You see it. Caitlin Clark's like, yo, we gotta get this idiot the hell out of here. We gotta get this idiot out of here. Aaliyah, I will not be signing my epic deal if this stupid lady is still here. You will be here on your own, Aaliyah. I am not signing an epic deal at all. I will leave. That's probably what she was whispering to her. I hope that's what she said to Aaliyah. I'm done with this. I'm done with this. I want nothing to do with this lady. Look at it. They're 100% talking about this situation with Stephanie White. She's done. She's done. I mean, you checking them both out with 6.5 minutes left in the first quarter, ridiculous. Jason Whitlock said this: Stephanie White rotated her players like they were playing 3 games in 4 nights. It was actually Portland playing its 3rd game in 4 nights. Stephanie White played 11 players in the first quarter. Wrong coach. Fire that bozo. Fire that bozo. There is no reason to play 11 different players in 1 quarter. This lady wants to be the smartest person in the room.
Publicly, the Fever talk about wanting to get the ball inside to their post players, focusing on feeding Boston and the other bigs. That sounds fine until you realize that when they actually run high, pick and roll with Clark and Boston, it's almost unguardable and opens up the whole floor. Then, for no clear reason, that action slowly disappears from the game plan. Instead, Caitlin is forced off the ball. She's standing in the corner, spacing the floor, while other players bring it up. This is one of the best on-ball creators in basketball, the same player who changed the geometry of college defenses, and she's being used like a spot-up role player. On top of that, the rotation patterns never seem to adjust to the moment. Whether she's hot or cold, whether they're up or down, there's the same early hook, the same rigid pattern, like what's happening in the game doesn't matter. Over time, that does something to you. When your coach's actions don't match their words, when they call you the first option, but your minutes, touches, and roles say otherwise, it chips away at your aggression, your confidence, and eventually, your trust. You start to feel like you're being managed, not unleashed. If this was only a basketball X's and O's problem, maybe you fix it in a film session, but the cracks are much deeper than that. According to a reported leak from someone close to the Fever front office, there are massive difficulties around Caitlin's future contract extension. The team allegedly put a huge, long-term offer on the table, the same kind of epic deal that Aaliyah Boston has already signed, and Caitlin has simply not signed it. On Boston's podcast, Aaliyah proudly mentions being locked in through 2029. Caitlin's response: she shrugs and reminds everyone she's only signed through next year. No joking about a decade in Indy. No, I'm here for life. Just a cold, factual reminder of her leverage. Insiders describe the relationship between Clark and the front office as shockingly cold and strange, saying something was said that damaged trust in a way that may not be fixable. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about a fundamental breakdown between a superstar and the people running her franchise. Then there's the detail that made a lot of people sit up straight. Her boyfriend, Connor McCaffrey, reportedly resigning from his coaching job at Butler, with the staff stunned and no clear new position lined up in Indianapolis. The speculation is obvious. He's clearing his schedule because they don't expect to be tied to Indy long term. Alleged? Yes. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you put it next to the unsigned extension, the cold relationship, and the on-court frustration, the picture starts to look very different. Here's what makes this situation so dangerous for the Fever. They're acting like Caitlin Clark is just another rookie in a rebuild. The rest of the league knows she's the engine of their entire business model. Networks did not pay premium money to watch her sit 3 minutes into the first quarter. They paid for deep threes from the logo, ridiculous passes, and the chaos she creates when everything runs through her. When you deliberately stifle that to run conservative post-entry sets, you're not just failing your star, you're working against the long-term financial interests of the entire league. If she keeps refusing that extension and plays this out, she can hit free agency around 2028, and teams will start clearing cap space years in advance just for a chance to pitch her. The balance of power flips completely. At that point, the question won't be, what can Caitlin do to fit the Fever? It'll be, what can a franchise do to build everything around her from day one? So, did Caitlin Clark's 4 words just end the Stephanie White era? Not officially. There's been no firing, no trade request, no public blowup, but it might be the moment the countdown started. Think about the pattern. Questionable rotations that pulled her when she was dominating and flipped winnable games. A system that turned a generational point guard into an off-ball decoy. And a front office leak describing a shockingly cold relationship and major concerns she'll never sign their epic deal. Then after all of that, she steps to the mic and tells the world, officiating wasn't our problem tonight. With everything we know, that doesn't sound neutral anymore. It sounds like a line in the sand. From here, there are really only 3 paths. 1. Stephanie White completely changes course, builds the offense fully around Caitlin, and somehow repairs the trust. 2. The face, the ratings, and a massive chunk of the league's momentum with her. So I'll throw it to you. Were those 4 words just an honest answer about one bad night, or did Caitlin Clark just fire the first public shot in a battle she fully intends to win? Let me know where you stand in the comments.
While there are many moments of frustration for the Indiana Fever in their 184 loss to Portland Fire Saturday night, the one that got the most attention involved the sideline exchange between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White, arguing on the bench during the break in the action, presumably over defense.
Hey, listen, I respect coaches like that, bro. When you can challenge your best player and your best player responds, maybe you're right. Let me lock in. The back and forth is not a bad thing to me, fellas. You know, it happens from time to time. And if you can't police your best player, bro, then it's always going to be a problem.
But the problem is, Joe, this is not isolated. It's every night. She doesn't play defense. I've been in Caitlin Clark's corner, but enough is enough now. I'm tired of her behavior. She's not holding up her end, and I love Stephanie White for this. It was a very similar situation where LeBron was trying to draw him something when Ty Lue first got the job, and Ty Lue said, I got this.
Gotta let him know who in charge.
Y'all say she got passion. Where is the passion on defense? If your coach can't coach you, you might as well just go ahead and get him up out of there.
Hands up, head shaking. And then she turned and walked away from her own coach on national television. That's what Caitlin Clark did Saturday night, and the entire basketball world saw it. 1 timeout, 1 blow-up on the Indiana Fever bench, and suddenly everyone's asking the same thing. Is something broken in Indiana? Because this wasn't some quiet little disagreement.
So Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark had their argument, and as expected, the fallout from it is significantly more than it should be. The fallout from this is gone crazy. Even though I'm not saying this is nothing, but it's not. It's between something, nothing, or everything. It's somewhere in between something and nothing. And I cannot stress this enough. People are like, oh, Caitlin Clark, she's going to demand out because of Stephanie White.
The cameras caught all of it. The pointing, the frustration, the moment Clark got out of her seat and stepped away. And what happened about 60 seconds later might tell you everything you need to know about where this team is heading.
My goodness, I'm pretty certain the dark side of the fandom grew greatly tonight. There is absolutely no excuse for what happened tonight. This team got outworked, out-hustled, out-coached. I don't ever want to hear Stephanie White and defensive guru ever put together again. They got absolutely worked by an expansion team on over-the-air free network television for the entire country to see. Congratulations, Indiana Fever. You have hired a coach that has regulated Caitlin Clark into what? The third best player on the team? A character actor? You're trying to turn her into a character actor? It's working.
Let's back up for a second. The Fever walked into Saturday night as 12-point favorites. 12 points against an expansion team playing its very first season. This was supposed to be a walk in the park. It was the opposite. The Portland Fire didn't just beat Indiana, they embarrassed them, 100-84. And the worst part? Caitlin Clark had one of the roughest nights of her entire career. 6 points. One made basket out of 7 tries. She missed every single three she put up. For the player who rewrote the record books in college, that's almost impossible to believe.
Clark came out once again with her hair on fire. Stephanie White benched her. What are we doing? By the way, expansion team officially has a better record than the Indiana Fever. What is there to talk about? I don't have one positive thing to show you guys tonight. Oh, Leah Boston had 18 points. Kelsey Mitchell had 17. Great. Stephanie White left them in there so they could stat pad. Gotcha. Because there was no chance they were coming back in this game. No chance. It was far and away a wrap halfway through the third. Unbelievable.
But it wasn't only the shooting. Clark kept getting whistled for fouls, 3 of them before halftime, so she spent big stretches of the game stuck on the bench, watching, getting more and more frustrated, and the longer it went, the more you could feel something building. Then came the timeout that broke the internet. Second quarter, Indiana already in deep trouble. White pulls her group in close, and the body language tells the whole story. The coach is fired up. She's pointing right at Clark. She slaps her own knee to drive the point home. And Clark, she's not having it. She throws her hands in the air. She shakes her head. At one point, she stands all the way up and steps behind her coach, clearly done with the conversation.
And it's a clip of Coach Stephanie White getting into it with Caitlin Clark. She's on the bench. It seems like she's getting really heated with her players. Caitlin's on the bench. She gets heated as well, puts her hands up. It seems like they were talking about some sort of defensive scheme or something. Coach Stephanie White gets annoyed with this, gets Caitlin Clark out of there, Raven Johnson in. Now, this was a very frustrating game. So I can understand frustrations in the huddle. I can also understand moments where players and coaches get into it. And even the last time that these two got into it, I came on here and I told you guys, I was like, I actually don't think this is that big of a deal. I don't think it's that big of a deal because you have a fiery player, you have a fiery coach, like this is bound to happen. But now that this has happened twice in a row within 10 days of one another, like, yeah, maybe there is a little bit of concern of what's going on with the Indiana Fever.
Within hours, millions of people were watching that clip on a loop. And then White made her move. She pulled Clark out of the game and sent in a rookie. Think about that for a second. Your franchise player, the face of the entire league, benched right in the middle of the meltdown. That's when the fans completely lost it. People started calling for the coach to be fired on the spot.
If the WNBA/Indiana Fever media is not riding Stephanie White's ass, they're all officially joked. Take your credibility, build yourself a nice little pile, and light it on fire. If any creator tries to tell you, Oh, it's one bad game. Nah. This, folks, is a trend. Stephanie White, your defensive guru status is burning in a fiery hell right before our eyes. Bro, what the hell is up with the sub timing? Why the hell is AB and CC sitting so long early? God only knows. Like I said, Caitlin Clark came out like her hair was on fire. Stephanie White pulled her, I believe, 3 minutes. 3 mother effing minutes into the game. And it was a wrap. It was a wrap.
The talk shows ran with it. The story was basically already written. Clark and White are at war. But that's not what either of them said next. 2 days later, Clark stepped up to the microphone and she shut the whole thing down. Her words, two competitive people who both badly want to win. She said moments like that happen all the time. Then she said the line that stopped everybody. I ride for Steph. Steph has my back more than anybody.
And what is your reaction to maybe some of that scrutiny, whatever you want to call it?
I mean, first of all, two people being competitive, two people that really want to win, and you know, I think a lot of those things happen all the time, and I know there's a camera on me, and that's how it's going to be, but there's a lot of people out there in the media or on TV that they think they know a lot of things, and they're just blatantly wrong about a lot of things, and I ride for Steph. I ride for these girls. Steph has my back more than anybody, so, you know, nobody in that locker room, in our locker room, or Steph or our coaching staff thought twice about it.
That's not exactly the sound of a locker room falling apart. And White backed her right up. She called it coaching, plain and simple. She said she loves Caitlin and that the two of them are more alike than they are different. Both stubborn, both competitive. Then she dropped the line a lot of people are still arguing about. She said, if this exact thing happened in men's sports, nobody would even blink.
I think what happened in that moment is I was challenging a player. You know, it's coaching. It's what it is. You know, I don't often think it becomes an issue if you're watching it in men's sports most of the time. And my relationship with Caitlin is great. Like, I love Caitlin. I ride with her. Like, this is, we have a great relationship. And I think that the narrative of people trying to make it something that it's not is just, you know, taking sensationalism to try to get some clicks and all the other stuff. She wants to be coached. I want her to help me be a better coach. We're both competitive. We're both stubborn. You know, we're more alike than different. And you know, hopefully we continue to bring the best out of each other.
Even teammate Lexi Hull jumped in to say, yeah, there's frustration, but that's just part of the game.
Everybody had something to say over the weekend because of the huddle with Caitlin, Stephanie White. We've got Twitter just going out. Everybody's losing their mind. You were there. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, there's frustration. I think we noticed they were trying to pick on Caitlin a little bit on defensive end. She was getting called for some fouls that, you know, fouls aren't fun. She got in some foul trouble. Our team got into some foul trouble, and that's just all it was. I think that's part of the game. There's frustrations that rise, and decisions have to be made. And ultimately, like, this wasn't something that carried on. This is in the moment, something that happened, and not something that is talked about now in our locker room, talked about even later on in the game. That's just something that happened. And unfortunately, Caitlin's got a camera on her 24/7, and so you see every little thing. But this happens almost every day in women's basketball, so not something that we're worried about at all.
And the reporters who cover this team every single day, they shot the firing rumors all the way down. So here's what's really going on. This isn't a team ripping itself apart at the seams. This is a championship contender that just got punched in the mouth by an expansion team and absolutely hated how it felt. The blow-up wasn't betrayal, it was two intense competitors who can't stand losing badly, on the biggest stage possible. But here's where it gets interesting. Clark says it's nothing. White says it's nothing. The team says it's nothing. And yet, that video is still everywhere, and the fans are still split right down the middle. Some see two fierce competitors who'll be totally fine by next week. Others believe you don't scream at the best player in the world and bench her without a crack forming somewhere. The Fever sit at 4-4. The pressure is very real, and the next few games are going to tell us exactly which side was right. So what do you think? Was this just heat of the moment fire between two winners? Or is this the very first sign of something the Fever can't afford to ignore? Drop your take down below. I want to hear it.
All right, you guys, let's talk about it. let's talk about it, shall we? The biggest news story in the WNBA. Obviously, everybody is talking about Coach Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark kind of getting into it on the bench. I have now seen the discourse. I've seen and heard what many of people are saying about this exchange, and I do have some thoughts about it. I have some thoughts about the whole Indiana Fever situation right now.
Everything you thought about the Indiana Fever drama just got worse. From the bench to the front office, this franchise looks like it is in full panic mode when it comes to handling Caitlin Clark. You can see it in the games, the press conferences, and even the way the organization responds to criticism.
It looks like Stephanie White and the Indiana Fever front office and all that coaching staff are under tremendous heat. They are under fire right now from Fox News, USA Today. I mean, you name it, CBS, Yahoo, ESPN. They are in a lot of heat. And a lot of people now online are calling for an investigation on this coaching staff for potential abuse to Caitlin Clark.
Today, we're breaking down 3 things. First, the coaching decisions that keep killing momentum. Second, the front office controversy that has fans furious. And third, why more people are starting to talk about the unthinkable, a future where Caitlin Clark decides she has had enough.
OMG. Now, last week I told y'all, when footage was coming out of Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark being buddy-buddy on the sideline, them dabbing it up, laughing it up, I told y'all this was a PR stunt because everybody was questioning Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White relationship. Now, Stephanie White did an interview last week, and in the interview, she said her and Caitlin Clark are buddies. They like the best. It was on the Quarry Company little show, radio show.
Before we start, this is my opinion based on public games, interviews, and commentary. I am not inside the locker room. I am simply reacting to what fans, analysts, and the basketball world are seeing. Let's start with the game that lit the fuse. The Fever came out looking sharp. Caitlin was creating opportunities, Aaliyah Boston was dominating inside, and Indiana appeared to have control of the game. Then everything changed. The coaching staff pulled key players while Indiana still had momentum. Clark sat, Boston sat, and almost immediately the opponent went on a run that completely flipped the game.
And yes, everything is fine in Orange.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's not what I'm saying.
You know what's not fine? Coach White needs to fucking pipe down.
What?
Ease up. Okay, we got the franchise. All right, so guess what? If she wants to come over to the bench and pout and scream and not play defense, she can. All right?
What?
You
See, that's the problem.
Stand down. You let her do whatever the hell she wants, and let's keep this thing moving.
That decision left fans stunned. You simply do not take both franchise cornerstones off the floor at the same time when they are driving everything that is working. Basic basketball strategy says you keep at least one of your stars on the court, especially when the other team is trying to make a push. Instead, Indiana rolled out lineups that struggled to score, struggled to defend, and watched its advantage disappear. The bigger problem is that this does not feel like a one-time mistake. Throughout the season, there have been stretches where Clark sits while the offense grinds to a halt. There have been games where Indiana seems determined to experiment with every possible lineup except the one that obviously works best around its generational point guard. Fans see it. Analysts see it. Even national commentators have started questioning whether these rotations make any sense at all.
I am freaking pissed right now. I am pissed off. Caitlin Clark, Stephanie White crashed out on Caitlin Clark on the bench and benched her throughout this game. That is what happened. We got footage of Stephanie White crashing out and benching Caitlin Clark. Stephanie White, who the hell you think you are? You was a bum. They ran your sorry ass out of Vanderbilt. They ran you out of there and fired your sorry ass. You was a bum. You haven't won nothing in the WNBA. You've been trying to hitch your wagon to being an assistant for a championship team. Your sorry ass haven't done nothing. Who the hell you think you are to be talking to Caitlin Clark like this?
When your best guard and your best big are constantly separated, when the pick and roll that should be the foundation of the offense barely appears, and when the team repeatedly loses momentum after substitutions, people are naturally going to ask questions. And that's where the real controversy begins, because the issues are no longer staying on the court. While fans are criticizing the coaching, the front office has found itself facing backlash of its own. Reports and screenshots have circulated online suggesting that team leadership has blocked or dismissed fans who question the organization's handling of Caitlin Clark and the team overall.
I mean, it's been absolute insanity. You got Caitlin Clark fans calling for an investigation upon this organization for potential abuse from the staff that is handling her. We saw what happened with Stephanie White, but we're going to go through a slew of these things, and then we're going to take a look at KC with Behind the Line as he dove into this, and he absolutely shredded the Indiana Fever for this situation. And it appears, man, people are not letting up. And it's been too many instances like this, okay? You got Brianne January going off on Caitlin Clark on the bench and all of this stuff. It's been nonstop, okay? This is just one instance. You got this Brianne January situation. Then you had this situation here. Stephanie White pulling on her arm, tugging on her, and Caitlin Clark pulling her arm away right here. You know, it's just been a non-stop circus, and the people are calling for an investigation into this organization to see what the hell is actually going on. What is going on with these coaches? What's going on with all of it? And then you're gonna see here when I can't even remember this coach. She came and grabbed her, and people are just saying that this is abuse that is going on with Caitlin Clark. We watched her get grabbed up by a referee. We're watching Stephanie White pull her arm. We watched Brianne January go off on her on the bench. We obviously saw this interaction here. We saw this interaction with Stephanie White going off on her on the sideline and then throwing the clipboard. I mean, just it's been a lot. And I think it's over between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White.
Think about that for a second. You land the most talked about player in women's basketball. Attendance explodes, television ratings soar. The entire league benefits from the attention. Yet instead of embracing the passion of the fan base, the organization appears to be fighting with it. Whether every criticism is fair or not almost becomes irrelevant at that point. The perception is what matters. And the perception right now is that Indiana looks defensive. Blocking fans does not solve lineup issues. It does not improve player development. It does not create a better offensive system. What it does is create the impression that pressure is starting to get to the people making decisions. That pressure has only intensified because national media figures are now openly discussing the situation. Several commentators have argued that Caitlin Clark's biggest obstacle is not the opposing team. It is her own organization. They point to questionable substitutions, inconsistent offensive schemes, and a lack of commitment to building the system around the player who has transformed the franchise's visibility overnight. And once those conversations start, things can escalate quickly. That is where words like sabotage begin appearing online. Now, to be clear, sabotage is a serious accusation, but once fans adopt that narrative, every decision starts getting viewed through that lens. A strange substitution, a questionable play call, a game-ending possession that goes somewhere other than Clark, a tense moment on the sideline. Suddenly, none of those incidents are viewed independently anymore. Instead, they become pieces of a larger story that many fans believe is unfolding. Whether that story is accurate or not is almost beside the point, because perception becomes reality. And the reality for many fans right now is that the Fever do not seem fully prepared to handle a superstar whose influence extends far beyond basketball. Which brings us to the most dramatic possibility of all, the trade conversation. Not because there are reports suggesting it is imminent, not because Caitlin Clark has said anything publicly, but because fans are beginning to ask the question, how long should a generational player remain in a situation that appears chaotic if meaningful changes never happen? Around the league, there are organizations that would immediately build their entire identity around a player like Clark. Stable coaching staffs, clear offensive philosophies, unified leadership. That contrast is exactly why the speculation continues growing. Would a trade request be shocking? Absolutely. It would send shockwaves throughout the WNBA. It would damage Indiana's reputation and force every decision maker in the organization to answer difficult questions. But at the same time, continuing down the current path carries its own risks. Eventually, frustration has a breaking point. So what needs to happen? First, the coaching staff needs to simplify things. Establish a clear rotation, keep one star on the floor at all times, build the offense around the Clark-Boston partnership, and make opponents prove they can stop it. Second, the front office needs to stop battling criticism and start addressing it. Fans do not expect perfection, they expect accountability. And finally, everyone inside the organization needs to understand how rare this opportunity truly is. Players like Caitlin Clark do not come along often. Very few athletes can transform ratings, attendance, media coverage, and league-wide interest almost overnight. That kind of opportunity is priceless. The question now is whether Indiana can take advantage of it before the pressure becomes too much. So what do you think? Are we simply watching a young team trying to figure things out under an intense spotlight? Or are we witnessing the early stages of a much bigger problem that could eventually reshape the future of both Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever? Let me know where you stand.
This is crazy. Even when it's unintentional, Stephanie White just gets blasted and exposed. This time by one Draymond Green. We got Sophie Cunningham. It's so much to break down.
Everybody's piling on Caitlin Clark right now. 2 ugly losses, the cameras zoom in on her getting cooked on defense, and the whole internet already has its verdict. Caitlin Clark can't guard anybody.
And yes, everything is fine in Orange.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's not what I'm saying.
You know what's not fine? Coach White needs to fucking pipe down.
What?
Ease up. Okay, we got the franchise. All right, so guess what? If she wants to come over to the bench and pout and scream and not play defense, she can. All right?
What?
You
See, that's the problem.
Stand down, you let her do whatever the hell she wants, and let's keep this thing moving.
But Draymond Green looked at that same tape and saw something completely different. And once you see what he's pointing at, you won't be able to unsee it. Because the real problem in Indiana right now might not be Caitlin Clark at all. It might be the people standing right next to her.
We all know Stephanie White has been an abomination of a head coach, especially to start off this season. The Indiana Fever are sitting at 500 at 4-4. This is ridiculous. She's subbing Caitlin Clark out every 3 minutes, subbing her out the first 3.5 minutes in the first quarter, playing 11 different players in first quarters, all types of foolishness and nonsense. Yet alone, this we're switching 1 through 5 defense. That's an absolute joke. This is a professional league. Stephanie White has been a travesty. We got to get into what Draymond Green had to say.
Let's set the table. The Fever just dropped 2 in a row. First, a tight one to the Golden State Valkyries, then a brutal 16-point beatdown from the Portland Fire, a team playing in its very first season. And in that Portland game, Clark had a night to forget. 6 points. 1 made shot out of 7, in foul trouble the whole way. So yeah, the clips looked bad. Portland went right at her over and over, dragging her into one-on-one situations all night long. But here's the first thing that should make you stop and think. This wasn't a one-game thing. Clark has guarded more isolation plays than any other player in the entire league this season.
We all know that we've all been addressing, and we've shown film breakdowns of Stephanie White's horrendous defense. Okay, now do we have the greatest defenders in Caitlin Clark? No. In Kelsey Mitchell? No. Even Sophie Cunningham? No, she's not a great defender. But to sit there and switch 1 through 5 to play no help defense, it's an absolute joke. Now let's take a look at what Draymond Green had to say before we get to Sophie Cunningham.
Jalen Brunson living on an island with James Harden guarding. That's just not something you can let happen. This isn't just a coaching issue. When you're trying to compete at a championship level,
This applies to Caitlin Clark and the Stephanie White situation as well. Follow along now.
You can let happen. This isn't just a coaching issue. When you're trying to compete at a championship level, you must have guys that want to take on that challenge. I'm not switching at this point in the game. Let them set the first screen, don't switch. Let them set the second screen, don't switch. Now, as opposed to Jalen Brunson getting the switch with 19 seconds on the shot clock, 17 seconds on the shot clock, now he gets to switch with 6 or 7 seconds on the shot clock. Now you gotta go. Now our defense can react and we just end up in a rotation. But he's not just dicing us up. You got guys in there that don't really want that challenge. They don't want to fight through the screen and say, this is my matchup, I want to stop this guy. I don't understand it. Guys simply don't know how to win, don't want to do what it takes. I was baffled by this. I'm still baffled by it every night when I watch these guys accept switches and not really want to guard the guy. So everybody.
That applies directly to the Indiana Fever, more so with this joke of a game plan. And Sophie Cunningham revealing, oh, we only have one defense, and that's the switch 1 through 5. He's showing you can't do that. It's lazy, it's a joke, and you're gonna get destroyed that way, the way the Indiana Fever have.
Sit with that for a second. Out of everybody, she's the one teams keep hunting every single night. So the real question isn't why is Caitlin Clark stuck on an island. The real question is, why does she keep getting left there? And that's exactly where Draymond comes in. Draymond Green knows this story better than almost anyone alive because he lived the other side of it. For a decade in Golden State, his whole job was protecting Steph Curry, and Curry is one of the most hunted players in basketball history. Teams spent years trying to drag him into bad matchups and pick on him. So how often did you hear people call Steph Curry a defensive liability who was killing his team? Almost never. Why? Because the Warriors built everything around shielding him.
Everybody going to come out and say, oh man, James Harden got annihilated. They're picking on him. They should pick on him. Why not? Absolutely pick on him. So all of a sudden, them threes that will fall late, they fall short. No matter how you want to slice it, it is not James Harden's job to guard Jalen Brunson one-on-one. It's not what he's paid to do. Some of those other guys who's just switching off, it is your job.
Shout out to Draymond Green. This applies directly to the Indiana Fever.
Draymond fought through the screens. Draymond took the tough matchup. The whole defense was designed so Steph could be Steph and never get left out to dry. That's not luck. That's how every great franchise treats its franchise player. You build the walls around your superstar. And Draymond has already said out loud what Indiana needs. Back in 2024, when teams were taking shots at Clark, he told the Fever to go invest in an enforcer fast.
We spoke about, we would get into is the Kennedy Carter and Caitlin Clark situation. Number one, I saw she came out like, enforcer who? Talking about my tweet. There's no shot at you. I like the play. Like, it was a for sure bullshit play. Like, you just run up and chuck the girl. But I'm all for that. I'm not the guy that's gonna come out here and be like, you shouldn't do that. No. But my point is they should get an enforcer so that when you do that, somebody come club you. Because that's what should happen. Like, you don't get to just do something to Steph Curry. I'm sorry. I'll get thrown out 82 times. Like, you just don't get to, like, hit Steph. Like, that's not what we gonna do here. And by the way, Steph gonna stand up for him. Steph ain't no, I can't say the word I wanna say, but ain't none of that in my brother blood. He gonna stand up for himself anyway.
He sees it. So look at Indiana and ask the obvious question. Where are Caitlin Clark's walls? But before you answer, there's one stat that flips this whole conversation upside down. Here's the part nobody pushing the Clark can't defend story wants you to know. The numbers don't even back it up. By one defensive rating, Clark sits a hair below average. Not the worst on her team. Not even close. And once you count what she does on offense, she's a team best plus 18 overall. Then there's this. When one outlet ranked the league's worst defenders, Clark wasn't in the top 10. She came in 14th. 14th. So this idea that she's some historic defensive disaster, it's a story. A loud, lazy, convenient story. And it sticks for one simple reason. Caitlin Clark drives clicks. Praise her or bury her, her name prints money. So the easy take wins every time. Meanwhile, the harder, truer take just sits there, ignored. The most hunted guard in the league is getting almost no help. And the people whose actual job is to scheme around her still haven't figured out how to protect their most important player. That's not on Caitlin. That's on the staff and the roster. And honestly, the wildest part of all of this is how she's handling it. Because Clark isn't blaming the scheme. She's not calling out teammates. After that Portland loss, she stood up and took it on the chin. Said she just needs to keep her defender in front and move her feet a little better. That's her taking the blame, while the people getting paid to build walls around her keep leaving the door wide open. So here's where I land. Caitlin Clark is not a perfect defender. Nobody's saying she is. But she's the most targeted player in the league, posting the best two-way numbers on her own team, and somehow she's the villain. Draymond sees it, the stats see it, and now you see it too. So what do you think? Is this...